So this is, I guess, the point in the semester where I also start to point out unethical versus ethical fieldwork. This is important in a major, major way. Um, and so, again, some of these are going to be kind of more on the subjective gray line or gray area, rather than kind of the black-white binary structure, which we'll talk about when we get to Levi-Strauss. So absolutely unethical stuff is things like paying locals for information. And this goes back to, again, that exchange gift-giving piece. Uh, Giving people products or material items for information is not ethical. It has been done a lot. Chagnon did it with the Yanomamo. We'll talk about him more. Chagnon did it with the Yanomamo. He traded machetes for information, and really got taboo information. It was taboo for these Yanomamo groups to speak the names of the dead, their relatives. And Chagnon really wanted the kinship structure. So he started to kind of manipulate the situation with machetes and things like that. And then what we get out of that is more violent war, more deaths, some bad stuff. Chagnon, when I went to school, at least the first kind of 3 years into my anthropology life at San Diego State, Chagnon was kind of seen as like a hero. They got all this information from the Yanomamo, and by the time I was graduating, other people were going in and doing research or publishing research on the Yanomamo and Chagnon's interactions with that. He is now kind of considered not a very good anthropologist and very unethical in a lot of ways. It also looks like he may have introduced diseases to see how they responded, some like almost eugenic stuff almost in a way. Again, not okay. Sleeping with locals, I put this on here. I read Paul Rabineau's experiences in Morocco, field work in Morocco. That's his ethnography. He ends up sleeping with a prostitute. His key informant pays for one. I use this as an example because, again, a lot of people are like, yeah, but isn't this kind of just part of the culture? Are you getting the imic perspective? The problem is with sleeping with somebody of the culture you're studying with, or anything in that kind of sexual realm, you start to get into almost a similar version of exchange. Now, what if they know what you're doing, and and kind of they're aware of your situation, manipulation and some of those other things start to become possible. Basically, it's one big pile of drama that doesn't need to exist in your fieldwork. So this is why I put it on here. Again, this may fall under the gray area because Paul Rabineau is still at Berkeley, and obviously this didn't hurt his ethnography. Again, it's on my bookshelf, but I like to use it as kind of a debate topic in a way, at least for your own kind of thought processes. Again, for me, this is just not okay, not ethical, because you're opening up a whole potential can of drama. Kenneth Good also goes down and studies the Yanomamo in Brazil, and ultimately the chief there offers up his 14 or 16-year-old daughter. I can't really remember. Anyway, by the time Good finishes his fieldwork, he takes the Yanomamo girl as a bride and moves up to New York, back to his home state. I believe it's New York. And ultimately they have kids. He's at the university. It's this whole kind of interesting thing that happens. And then they take a trip back to Brazil to visit her family. And this is where it just goes haywire. She leaves Kenneth Good, who's an anthropologist, leaves him, and ends up with another Yanomamo boy, goes straight back to the jungle. So she had New York, she had that life, she goes straight back to the jungle. So again, a lot of times people are like, yeah, but Griffin, when people come to America, they surely stay and they don't care about the kind of old indigenous, or AKA what uninformed or Morgan would call primitive people of the jungle. It's not true. A lot of people miss that life. Remember, a lot of leisure in the hunter-gatherer life. And so having to go to work or stay cooped up in a box, aka a house, and not in open air in the jungle. That can be psychological torment. Anyway, aside from that, the kids end up going back with good. He's lost his wife, and now there's kind of this broken family. AKA the moral of this story is sometimes anthropologists should probably fudge the truth around some of these things. So if the chief tries to marry you off to his daughter, or vice versa, it's a good idea to say that you already have somebody in your life back home, or work around that cultural situation in order to avoid that issue. That is a huge issue. But again, for me, this would be kind of fall on the unethical side. Oh, but you're kind of going to a certain level of native and getting the Immic perspective. You're marrying into the tribe. That's crossing that gray line of etic perspective. That I'm here and I'm an anthropologist. Yes, I can make friends for life, but I'm not going to complicate the situation and marry one, and create this whole family structure. Again, I talked about with speaking with locals, kind of falls under the sex and fieldwork issue with Paul Ravenel. So same kind of stuff. Again, a lot of times people ask, students ask, but Griffin, this is kind of just a natural thing in life. Yeah, but I think that it can totally distort, this aspect can distort your fieldwork. Again, a lot of times you're just muddying up the whole thing. I mean, if you're studying a group and then you start to form these relationships with people, your bias structure and your focus is going to completely change around some of these things. And again, it's not planned. It wasn't planned or it wasn't thought out. Natural process of living with another group and becoming close to them, but you've changed your kind of goal on the from the onset, or the original plan of your research. So again, this is another area to really avoid. So these are examples of unethical fieldwork. In terms of anthropologists and theories, so we're going to jump into this. This is going to be a lot of information. You're going to want to take some notes on this because this stuff is definitely going to show up on quizzes and tests. Going back a little bit, though, to what is ethical fieldwork. Ethical fieldwork is, again, don't pay, make friends with the culture, don't exploit the culture. If you're trying to make money off this project, this is the wrong reason to go into anthropology. Anthropologists tend to not have a lot of money, and they're okay with that. Again, ethical, then we start to get into some gray lights about ethical as well. Things like, I think I mentioned or it's in your vocabulary or people to know in the guided lessons for the week, is a particular anthropologist who helps invent Gogurt, which is on-the-go yogurt. This is an anthropologist who basically went down the corporate road, aka applied cultural anthropology, or applied anthropology, being a cultural anthropologist, trying to figure out what people in America want, or what people in busy Western nations want. So she and others helped create this whole huge kind of marketing campaign and or product called Gogurt, which makes a ton of money. My questioning around moving in this direction, I don't think that corporate anthropology always has to be unethical, but I do. Here's the thing. Let's say that this individual that creates Gogurt, does she realize the implications or the health effects of that Gogurt on people? Is dairy for everyone and all the sugar that you put in that, is that a healthy product? And if you know that information and you're producing it and trying to promote it to everyone, is that ethical? Right? And that's my big question to you. And I'll just leave it at that. So ethical and unethical fieldwork practices really gets into kind of value judgments and how you've been trained and what you've been told, and kind of going through these thought experiments. And a lot of times anthropologists have to go through these thought experiments in the moment, right? And so Not saying that this stuff is easy for everyone. I think that it's very important to go into the field with principles, objectives, and not really bend, your core rules for yourself in that field work. Getting back to the anthropologists and theorists, these are the ones that I'm going to discuss. Evolution, unilineal evolution, and ultimately we're kind of touching on Morgan here with the unilineal evolution, that everybody goes through the same line of evolution to get to the civilized state, which is kind of fallacy, obviously, as we talked about. But I'm going to go through, and each one of these has its own slide. Functionalism, Herbert Spencer, and this is a big kind of concept for you guys all to remember. Herbert Spencer, early sociologist, believes that society is like an organism. He calls, and so think of the human body as society, and then each one of us as a cell. Some of us might be cells of the heart, so now that's an organ or an institution. So this is kind of what Herbert Spencer kind of comes up with in terms of an analogy. Spencer's also very concerned with what he calls the superorganic, and the superorganic is kind of this superstructure, aka society or culture, that sits above all individuals and kind of, shifts them. It's like the ocean kind of currents and moves fish and kelp and all of these different ways, and without you actually being able to see it. You can kind of feel the effects of it, but you don't actually see kind of the current. Durkheim wrote the book Elementary Forms of Religious Life, Collective Conscience, and sacred versus profane. These are two terms you're going to want to know for your vocabulary as well. Very simple. Sacred is holy, what we find holy, okay? Which may be marriage or going to church or a funeral. That would be sacred or holy. Profane is not holy. Something like brushing your teeth, right? Sacred, profane. Malinowski, talked about Malinowski a lot already with an observation. He's a functionalist. Remember, functionalists in general, now that we're kind of in this category, functionalists in general look at function. Why are people doing that ritual? Is it for social cohesion? Functionalists are trying to constantly figure out, is this institution or is this event or is this ritual building social cohesion? And how is this functioning to build that cohesion? Simply throwing birthday parties has a function. It's getting the family together. You might retell stories. You're rebuilding the family history, and also celebrating age or time, marking time. These are all functional kind of perspectives. Radcliffe Brown moves towards structural functionalism, which is structure is kind of the patterns of culture that are underlying why people do certain things, and then overlaying that with institutions and cohesion. Ralph Linton, one of my kind of favorite anthropologists in terms of a person. I don't know, he's has some marked pasts, but as an anthropologist, I really love kind of the topics that he explored, and really what he looks at is role and status and prestige. And really what we start to get with Linton and Ruth Benedict is this kind of psychological anthropology, which is a whole subfield, by the way, and UC San Diego is very big in it. But this identity component, which is what I did my research on in Yucatan. Again, role, right? What is your role in the family unit, in society? These are big. And then how much status does that get your role? I remember when I turned a certain age, it might have been like 10 to 12 or something, and I was given the role of trash taker outer, right? I could now take out the trash. With that, even though it was kind of a not so fun job, I gained some status, which is my parents now trust me to do certain jobs, which is a step in that, wow, maybe they're going to trust me to drive soon. And again, this is kind of the order of operations around that way. So reciprocal behavior, role, status, gaining that social status or in the family is important.